thing moving. If everybody could pull out your phones, go to slido.com, enter the number on your screen, and then vote on the resolution before the debate even begins. I want to know what you think about it. So we're going to take time, let everybody in here vote. We'll tabulate it, and then we'll get started. So we'll give you about maybe a minute to get that done. Do you support the ban of the ban on the sale of new gas vehicles in the state of Texas after the year 2035? Do you support that? So everybody, if you're rolling in, go to slido.com. Go to the poll and vote. I'll tell you why shortly. There, keep going. Everybody, make sure you vote. Even if you just walked in, make sure you vote. You all voted yesterday, correct? You all drove home and went and voted? Your silence is disturbing. Well, make sure you do it the next time around. All right, let's see where we stand. Okay, so as of now, 84% of you say no. Well, we will see. We'll see if we can change your minds. So welcome everybody to the debate. I hope this is the second time you're checking it out today. We were debating all day today, 1, 2, and 3 in the Grant Lecture Halls. It went over well. We had some good points made. We do this every semester. The Department of Communication Studies selects a controversial topic, a policy-focused topic for us to debate. We've done everything from abortion to Confederate statues, the border wall, AR-15s, whatever you got. Whatever makes you squeamish, we want to talk about it. We think discourse is very important. We take free speech and discourse very seriously. So today's resolution is this House moves to ban the sale of new gas-operated vehicles in the state of Texas after 2035. We'll be doing a parliamentary-style debate, meaning we have 2 teams of 2 debaters, 4 total debaters, for a total of 6 rounds. We vote before because we do an Oxford-style scoring, meaning we'll see what you think about the issue before we start. You'll hear our arguments, hopefully with an open mind, and whoever can change the most minds, whoever can gain the most votes will win the debate. So at the end, you don't have to change everybody's mind, you just have to change some minds. So keep an open mind when you're listening, and listen for who makes the best arguments and who presents them the best. Make sure to have your phones off. Make sure they're on silent or just off. You can pay attention this long, I promise. And if you guys are ready, I'll now ask the Prime Minister to begin the debate.
Hello, I'm Koran Mason, and I would like to welcome everyone to our Texan debate. I will be representing the government as your Prime Minister today. As he said, this year's topic would be over the government's move to ban gas vehicles following the year 2035. Now, before I get into my argument, I would like to define some terms. When we say we'd like to ban gas vehicles, by that we mean we will not be allowing the production or the sale of gas-powered vehicles in the state of Texas. Gasoline vehicles we define as vehicles fitted with an internal combustion engine that is fueled by gasoline. We'll define electric vehicles. An electric vehicle or an EV also is referred to a vehicle with an electric drive. So they're powered by battery. However, there are three types of electric cars that we'll talk about today. There are hybrid electric vehicles, or HEVs, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, PHEVs, and battery electric vehicles, BEVs. And now I'd like to go into my arguments. My first argument for the ban would be lower greenhouse emissions, as when you drive your gas-powered vehicle, the typical passenger will emit about 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. And now, just to put this into perspective, with 20 million gas vehicles, excluding diesel, and 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year, we're looking at a total of 92 million metric tons of CO2 from gasoline vehicles, excluding diesel. And now, when we go into the burning of CO2 emissions, per gallon for gasoline would be 8,887 grams of CO2 per gallon. And then for diesel, we're looking at 10,180 grams per gallon of CO2. All my data here comes from the EPA.gov. And now my next point would also be financially, it would be smarter, as you'll save money in the long run. While electric vehicles do cost more up front, similar to solar panels, you'll be saving money due to the lack of expense as you're using it. For instance, to travel 200 miles with an electric car, you'd only need $9 worth of charge. However, to travel that same 200 in a gas-powered car, you would need roughly 10 gallons of gas for the average car, which would total, and what today would total around $25 to $30. So every 200 miles, you'd be saving $21. That comes from lifeandmyfinances.com. My next point I want to get into would be performance, as while gas cars are faster, electric cars are quieter, and they're also quicker. They accelerate faster. And then another point, which is more political, I'd like to talk about would be energy security. So with gasoline, like most Western countries, the United States, we import a lot of our gas from the Middle East and other countries. By removing gas vehicles and using less and switching over to EVs due to the ban, we would no longer be relying on these countries for gas. And because we are no longer relying on countries in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, etc., for our gas, that would decrease our involvement within those countries. So we would no longer have to police those countries as much as we have to, so we would have less war, less American soldiers dying due to not American issues just because of gas. So we won't have to protect our gas because now our cars will be running on our electricity and our electric grid. Similar to this, I would like to go into, where's that? Okay, so with the energy security, just some numbers on this that come from energy.gov. We import around 7.86 million barrels per day. And so by decreasing this, we will approximately 30% of our energy and 70% of our petroleum consumption comes from imports such as that. So by getting rid of that, we'll be cutting down our cost that we'll be providing to these other countries. Instead, we can put that money into our own domestic country. And that'll be it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dimitra Poulos, and I will be your leader of opposition for this debate. I'd like to remind you that the opposition does not support the ban of the sale of new gas vehicles in the state of Texas after 2035. We accept all of the terms presented by the government. Today, to begin with, I would like to emphasize the extensive presence of our chosen modes of transportation that they have in our day in and day out lives. When driving down a major interstate or highway, one of the first things you see displayed next to road signs and speed limit guidelines is the advertisement for gas. Your eyes are naturally drawn to start the search for a place to refuel. And the term refuel reaches over not only the vehicle you're in control of, but also the body attached to the hand holding that wheel. After a long road trip, the last thing you want to do is search endlessly for a place to refuel your vehicle, or in this case, charge it. Gas stations dot the exit and sidelines of national roads across the entire U.S., and the convenience of the prominent accessibility is one not to be ignored. To state it more plainly, gas stations are everywhere, and charging ports simply are not. Mostly only found in large cities and in few numbers surrounding these cities. The government argues this is because electric cars are considered to be fairly new, an introduced concept with bringing up the temporary global shortage of essential EV charger components. But the fact of the matter is, electric cars have been around as early as the beginning 2000s and started gaining major popularity traction as long as 10 years ago. If charging stations majorly haven't picked up yet, when will they? Furthermore, gas stations are constructed to be quick, grab your necessities, and go system. An electric charging port compromises this well-timed design. An electric car can take up to over 6 hours to charge from empty. But even if you make stops for a recharge with a fuller battery, the minimum interval can be expected to still be between 30 and 40 minutes, supporting the idea that not only are charging ports vastly limited, but also majorly inconvenient for its users. I would also like to bring up the restricted driving range these electric vehicles are equipped with. Based on studies constructed by resources.org, electric vehicles on average have a driving range between 300 and 400 miles, depending on the battery size. Hardly half the distance of most gas-powered vehicles. Not to mention, roughly all diesel and gas vehicles have been proven to match, if not exceed, their EPA ratings, while electric vehicles only have a handful of cases in which they even came close to meeting their combined figures, proving these electricity-ran transportations really aren't all that reliable when it comes to the longevity on the road. Otherwise, we claim that the electric vehicles can run over 600 miles. It was claimed that they can run over 600 miles without a single charge, but these alleged distances have never been proven, and this is because everything runs off of that car battery. There's already a heavy load bound to drain your battery at a fast pace, but take into consideration the factors outside of your control, such as less than ideal temperatures and poor weather conditions. And this supposed range zone is suddenly hard to pinpoint. Further recognizing our heavy reliance on vehicles is the trust we put into these transportation methods. We buckle children, invite friends, and drive parents in vehicles we call ours. That comes with a lot of responsibility. Although it's true, electric vehicles have come a long way since their introduction, according to NorthDakotaLaw.com, there are still several threats these vehicles pose, one being unexpected fires. These vehicles are not fitted with combustible fuels, and they are fitted with a major battery source that can overheat and possibly burst into flames. Lithium-ion batteries are deadly if given the opportunity to explode. Therefore, it can only take one minor manufacturing mistake and put you and your passengers at risk. Just to state one example, on February 24th, 2019, a Tesla Model S crashed into a tree and caught on fire due to a battery malfunction. The driver burned to death. The driver more than likely wouldn't have passed away if it weren't for the electric vehicle's major dependence on all battery-operated mechanisms. Similarly, electric vehicles pose a risk of electrocution due to the high voltage operating between 200 and 800 volts. Even if the extra precautions are used to ensure making a high voltage wired carefully in the production stage, if there is ever a short or if someone touches a bare connector, the results can be fatal. The next point I would like to bring up is that electric vehicles and their impact on the environment. The biggest claim on the side of pro-electric cars is the ideology of a cleaner environment. But it doesn't take much digging to discover going electric is not as green as it's cracked out to be. For starters, electric vehicles are wasteful. According to npga.org, more than 60% of energy is used for electricity generation is lost in the conversion process. The leaders of our government have a way of covering this up by advertising the idea of 100% clean energy being equivalent to 100% clean environment. This is simply inaccurate. And clean sources are completely dependent on compliant and consistent weather patterns, which is a variable we know cannot be controlled. This proves that despite the government's efforts to switch to all electric vehicles, it is one that would neither be practical nor cleaner, especially considering the negative marks they still leave on the environment based on their heavy elevated production of greenhouse gases, heavy dependence on fossil fuels, and the pollution damage their lithium-ion batteries cause. If the whole face of the government's argument is regarding a cleaner environment is illogical and false, what does that say about the connecting pieces to their case? This is also taking away so much more. It takes away the gas tax. Comptroller.texas.gov states that under the Texas Constitution, after refunds and collecting costs are subtracted, 3/4 of the state's motor fuels tax revenues is used to build and maintain public roadways, after the remainder goes into the state's available school fund, which supports public school education. The gas tax does so much more than people may know. It probably helped many of us get here today. If we do not have a gas tax, they will find somewhere else to tax us. Take California, for example. They are the pioneers for this ban. And for example, some of the ways they replaced the gas tax was making higher insurance for EVs, applying new taxes, and paying more for the current taxes. Last, and quite possibly most importantly, is the rights that we have. The citizens of Texas are granted by law. We greatly value freedom within our decisions, and going electric would ultimately impede on this given liberty. Within a decade of its appearance, the gas vehicle dominated the market without public infrastructure. Gas vehicles were considered to be an environmentally effective setup from horse-drawn carriages, and because of this, it didn't take long after their arrival for the need for efficient fuel delivery to be recognized and fulfilled. Comparing this analogy to today's electric vehicles is simply not the same. Even if these electric vehicles were miraculously proven to be more cost efficient in the far future, electric cars are still expensive upfront, and the need for an extensive network of charging stations to keep up with the vehicle's production is unproportional. Further heightening these expenses for the public as a government-financed electric charging network would be both misguided and majorly costly. This means that the starting price of electric vehicles is already a feat for your average middle-class citizen. So when you bring in the population of those not as equally fortunate, how are they going to be expected to afford it? When it comes to electric vehicles, you are wrongfully given no choice, no matter the status of your income. My opponents argue that upfront prices will eventually level out in the income status of average citizens. But what about right now? No poorly backed future guarantee made on the side could deflect from the fact that electric vehicles are only in favor of high-income earners from the start. Only consumers should be able to determine what product suits them best. And in the mandation of electric vehicles were to be pursued, the freedom of decision should be briskly jerked from the palm of our hands. In conclusion, what our opponents are encouraging with the ban of the sale of gas vehicles is, in order to save our world, we have to damage it. Sure, more jobs would be introduced with the new need for power grids and charging stations. But if this comes at the cost of our environment, is it really worth it? Thank you for taking the time to listen to me speak. Vote for our freedom, vote for your liberty, and vote for the opposition.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to the 2022 Texan debate. My name is Vickie Nguyen, and I'm the member of the government. I'll be discussing why the ban on the sale of gas vehicles will greatly benefit us. My first point will be that it is less expensive. You're going to have federal tax credits if you own an electric vehicle that can go up to about $7,500 in tax credit. Not only that, but fuel and maintenance costs will be cheaper. According to Aragon.com, the cost of electricity required to charge an electric vehicle is around 40% less than the cost to use petrol for a similar sized vehicle driving the same distance. Battery-powered cars will spend on average less than $1,000 per year on electricity bills, while fuel for gas cars will cost between $2,000 and $7,000. There are also less components for you to worry about when doing maintenance, so that cuts down on cost as well. The average cost to maintain an electric vehicle is $949 annually without insurance, which is about $330 less than the maintenance for gas vehicles. Not only that, but there will be government grants for those who own an electric vehicle. According to EDF Energy, the Office for Zero Emission Vehicles is currently offering 4 grants to help fund electric vehicles and EV chargers. The plug-in car grant, which is a discount when buying brand new low-emission cars. The electric vehicle home charge scheme, which is a grant contributing to the cost of charging point installation at home. The workplace charging scheme, which helps businesses with upfront cost of charging stations. And the on-street residential charge point scheme, which is support for local authorities to look into installing on-street residential car chargers. The next point I'd like to make is that there will be new job opportunities. Switching to electric vehicles is predicted to generate tens of thousands of union jobs in the automotive industry. We predict a net gain of 2 million new jobs by the year 2035 if we make the switch from gas-powered to electric vehicles. These opportunities can include jobs in science and engineering, manufacturing, and maintenance. With these new jobs will come more people seeking an education as well as higher wages. The last point I'd like to make before getting into rebuttals is environmental and health benefits. According to myev.com, pollutants found in car exhaust can aggravate or even cause severe health issues like asthma and bronchitis. Gas cars can also leak harmful liquids which can seep into the soil and are already limited water supplies, harming both plants and animals. With the mass sale of electric vehicles, this will reduce the amount of CO2 emissions that pollute the air and overall benefit the environment. All right. One point that the opposition made was that charging cars is going to take way too long. However, NASA has already developed a cooling system for electronics in space that could, in theory, allow electric vehicles to charge for 5 minutes. The heat transfer system can cool cables carrying high currents, potentially allowing for that super fast charging without the risk of overheating. If this theory was further studied, there would be so much potential for EV charging stations, and this will help us reach our goal of shorter charging times in 10 years. Technology will have been enhanced by 2035, and scientists and engineers will have created faster chargers for EVs so that the charging time will be reduced from hours to minutes. Another point my opposition made is that charging stations aren't readily available to everyone, and it would take like a long time to install all the charging stations everywhere. However, the EV charging station market is expected to boom due to the rise of the popularity of EVs. The U.S. Transportation Department has already approved of the implementation of new EV charging station plans for all 50 states that cover 75,000 miles of highways. That's enough to at least get us started, and if we work towards this goal, we could cover charging stations everywhere and make it more easily accessible to everyone. The last point I would like to go against is battery fires. Gas cars can still cause fires. In fact, they're more likely to catch fire than EVs. Statistics show that 1,529.9 fires per 100,000 gas vehicles could occur, but only 25.1 fires per 100,000 electric vehicles will occur. The statistics for total fires for battery fires that occur for each type of vehicle. For hybrids, 16,051. For gas vehicles, 199,533. And electric vehicles only have 52 total fires. Either way, you're going to have risks, but the risk potential for EVs can go down if you give people the chance to improve them. Plus, car crashes due to distracted driving is more of a risk than fires, as it is the leading cause of death in regards to driving. Before I finish my argument, I'd like to further prove my point by telling you this. Stephen S., who bought an electric vehicle after owning a Ford truck for years, saved $8,000 on gasoline purchases after buying his EV. Andrew B., who is never going back after he bought a low-maintenance electric car, as he grew tired of working on gas cars and paying an excessive amount of money for poor maintenance work. John L., who had a 168-mile trip that was almost all highway, reduced his speed to 65 miles per hour, but he ended up having 34 estimated miles left when he got to his destination. So he doesn't have to worry about range anymore. These are all real people who have had amazing experiences after buying an electric vehicle, according to pluginamerica.org. And there are so many more success stories for electric vehicles. They are a thing of the future, and we can't progress without innovation. With this new law, it is guaranteed that electric vehicles will be worked on and improved, so the concerns that the opposition states won't have to worry about them. I admit the transition won't be easy, but we have 10 years to implement new modern technology to make the transition as smooth as possible. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I encourage you to vote for government.
Hello, my name is Jackie Nguyen, and I'm a member of the opposition for tonight's debate. I just want to thank everyone for being here and supporting us this evening. I am here today to oppose the ban of gas vehicles in the state of Texas at the end of 2035. The ban on gas vehicles would be a step into a centrally planned economy. Our economy would crumble if the state of Texas mandated only electric vehicles. Our freedom as Americans would be taken away if the ban for gas vehicles goes into effect in the next 15 years. As Americans have the right to freedom, and moving to all EVs takes that away on what vehicle we can and can't drive. Converting to EVs is not the big issue, it's the mandate. If we are forced to drive a specific vehicle that are generally more expensive and for the higher class, then people in the lower tax brackets are potentially not going to be able to afford a car to drive. California is actually the pioneer of this movement. They were the first state to ban gas-powered vehicles and mandate only electric vehicles in their state borders. Economist.com says that when they implemented the ban in California, they had to put $10 billion towards the infrastructure, which leads me to the grid capacity issue. The grid could potentially fail if the state of Texas is converting to all electric vehicles, while so many vehicles would be charging at the same time. This is not just a state issue, this can also turn into a federal issue. But since electric vehicles are becoming of this day and age, we should have the right to know the downsides of them. Gasoline-powered vehicles actually only account for 27% of the total greenhouse emissions. Optimus.com states that the production of electric vehicles actually creates more emission. Making a gasoline or diesel vehicle releases about 7 to 10 tons of CO2, but making an electric vehicle takes the same amount, but you also have to consider the production of the battery. For an electric car to have a decent range, it needs a battery that has 60 kilowatts in capacity. This means that a further 9 tons of CO2 will be emitted into the air just from the battery production. The next topic I want to touch on is the malfunctions. Any car can have a malfunction, but NALE.com states that the display screen and sensors within electric vehicles have had serious malfunctions in the past, and they're still occurring today. I'm sure we've all heard about the Tesla catching on fire last year from Hurricane Ian, but during the hurricane, firefighters had to battle a number of fires created by electric cars. The salt from the hurricane had a bad reaction with the battery, which caused several of them to blow up. The next topic I want to talk about is the cost. Most of these electric vehicles are luxury vehicles that are quite expensive. EarthJustice.org states that the average price for an electric vehicle in the United States is $60,000. That is very expensive for people in the lower income classes. Anyone may struggle buying a car, gasoline, electric, or hybrid, but civilians who are searching for an electric vehicle have been struggling with issues such as lack of inventory and higher sticker price. If you want to buy a Tesla in the United States anytime soon, then you have to get on the waiting list that lasts an average of 3 months. The next topic I want to talk about is the electric vehicle batteries. The average battery life is about 8 years, while a gasoline vehicle's engine lasts for about 15 years. The average price to replace a gasoline-powered engine is between $3,000 and $5,000. The cost to get an electric vehicle battery replaced is anywhere from $2,500 to $20,000. YPTE.org says that batteries in electric vehicles need rare metals such as lithium, cobalt, manganese, nickel, and graphite. The mining for these materials is damaging our ocean's ecosystem. One of the pathways for retrieving these minerals is mining the seafloor to extract cobalt and nickel that are used for these batteries. Extraction of these minerals has thus far been limited to land. It has been determined that we will struggle to create large numbers of electric cars simply because they don't have the sufficient access to sources of lithium to make the batteries. To extract lithium for the earth, a huge amount of water is pumped into the salt flats, which brings mineral-rich salt water to the surface. This is damaging our ecosystem and bringing unneeded materials to Earth's surface. This leads me to my next issue with these batteries. Some of them are not recyclable. The Chemical and Engineering News states that as little as 5% of the world's lithium batteries are recycled. So the rest of the 95% just goes into the landfill with no help to our environment. Driving an electric vehicle with a non-recyclable battery is like driving a Tesla with the generator strapped on the back. Lastly, there are just not enough charging stations around the country to make it convenient for these new vehicles, especially in more rural areas around the country. At the end of August this year, there were almost 34,000 charging stations around the United States. While filling a car with diesel or gasoline only takes a couple minutes, an electric vehicle takes anywhere from 30 minutes to 6 hours. Gas stations have an average of 6 pumps or more, and the average time that it takes to fill up is between 4 and 6 minutes. Many EV owners get around this issue by installing a charging station in their home garage, but that is not an option for apartment owners or renters. Another factor to consider is the weather. The colder weather can temporarily reduce the range of these batteries between 10 and 20% and can potentially triple the charging time. The need to charge vehicles could potentially cause problems in the future when everyone needs to plug their car in around the same time. The average mileage per charge is just under 200 miles, so that makes it from Stephenville to San Antonio without any stops. The longest range is just under 400 miles, which is still shorter than many gas vehicle ranges. Their batteries have only been predicted to run for at least 3 hours in a traffic jam. Electric vehicles may be the new technological advancement, but our world is just not advanced enough for them yet. Before I conclude my speech, I would like to mention some things my opponent said. As I said above, the production of the electric vehicle battery itself creates more pollution. Optimus.com states that the production of both electric and gas-powered vehicles use the same amount of CO2, but adding the production of the battery is an extra 9 tons of CO2. As well as the expensive price of electric vehicles, these vehicles are targeted for the higher income civilians. Getting electric cars serviced might be cheaper than gas, but they do not last as long and they are not nearly as reliable. Also mentioned above, this mandate would hurt our economy and it would turn it into a centrally planned economy. This is not what the United States is, and it's not what we're turning into. Thank you for coming and listening. Keep our liberty alive and vote opposition.
Hello again, my name is Dimitra Poulos. I am the leader of opposition, and we do not support the ban of sale of new gas vehicles in the state of Texas after 2035. I'd like to state that there is no safe and eco-friendly way to produce a car. Moving to all electric models would make us take steps backward from all the progress we have made. We would be excluding an entire class of our citizens. If you're in favor of moving to electric vehicles, you are no better than the the higher income people in large cities. Banning gas vehicles would say you are in favor of losing your freedom. Speaking of freedom, I do want to go back into that mandate. I believe that currently as individuals, as my partner said, we have a free and mobile economy. Moving with this mandate would force us to have a central planned economy. Limiting us to electric vehicles would allow those only with money to buy an electric car and a house and time to charge an electric car. Forcing those without time, money, and shelter, they would lose their right to drive because they would not have a vehicle. And yes, this ban is on the sale of new gas vehicles. However, producing, and that would affect us really badly. I do want to touch on some things that my opponent said. They talked about how they are less expensive. However, sorry, 1 second, guys. There we go. However, today, almost everyone has a car. People sell them on Facebook, eBay, Craigslist. Car dealerships even have used car lots. You may have even gotten your first car used and paid a smaller fraction of the price. This leads into my argument how gas cars are affordable for people of all tax brackets. You can find cars on all the sites mentioned above for around $5,000 or less, while most electric cars range from $55,000 and up. Business Insider states that electric cars were made for the rich. Take the Tesla Roadster, for example, that has a price of $200,000, and other models do not fall far behind. Something else was, I want to reiterate some terms that were used above. The state of Texas, that is only within state borders, and it has no federal impact. However, my opponent mentioned federal tax credits. We are not talking about federal impact, so that would have no point in this discussion, in this debate. Also, another thing would be hybrids. This is full gas vehicles, or this would be fully electric. We are not talking about hybrids. So any mention about hybrids or any mention about federal tax credit, I would like to be disregarded. Also, safety problems. Yes, safety problems are bound to happen with every car, and that's okay. Like I mentioned, they may have lane assist. It might help with distracted driving. However, there are currently gas vehicles right now that have lane assist. So it's not that it affects that. Another thing is the CO2 emissions. Pollution is inevitable. It wasn't created by gas vehicles, and I don't believe that there's a way to fully stop it. According to autotrader.com, electric cars may not produce tailpipe emissions, but they still contribute to the emissions. Electric vehicles emit harmful gases when they are manufactured. They also use unsustainable materials and methods of extraction to access these materials. Additionally, they source energy from a grid that uses fossil fuels, which again contributes to greenhouse emissions. Another source of emissions is the batteries. Electric cars are fitted with a lithium-ion battery that use a lot of energy and raw material. There are ways to repurpose these batteries for other uses once they become inefficient for electric cars, but there's no fully sustainable way of recycling these batteries. And just because we don't see pollution happening doesn't mean it's not. And that's exactly what these electric vehicles are doing. They still produce pollution while they're being manufactured. They still produce emissions, even though they might be lower, they're still there. There's no way that we can truly get rid of the pollution. Another thing is with asthma and bronchitis, those are medical things, and while, yes, breathing in the bad air may affect that, it's not something that is based and made by gas vehicles. That is all I have for today. Thank you for listening. Remember, let's keep our freedom, keep our gas vehicles, and vote for opposition.
Thank you again for coming. I'll be concluding our debate following my statement. I would like to just reiterate the fact that I'm the Prime Minister and we are in support for the ban of electric vehicles. Can I raise this thing? Thank you. Okay, well, we're going to talk like this now. Okay, so going back into, I would like to just restate my case. We believe that the ban on electric vehicles would not only benefit us economically, as your average person will now be saving more money per gallon. We'll be cutting down our CO2 emissions, and we'll also be keeping our environment safe. And now going into some rebuttals that both my opponents have made, they made a claim on infrastructure that our infrastructure cannot support the movement to electric vehicles. And while at first this may be true, to me there's a lot of upside into this, so if our infrastructure is bad, we have to fix it. So in order to fix it, we need people to fix it That's jobs. So by creating more jobs, we're supporting our economy. And also, these jobs sound like they'll be high risk or they'll require high education. Both of these jobs most likely will be higher paying, and a higher paying job, which gets into my next point. So they talked about affordability. If we have people making more money now and they're talking about cars are more affordable, they said the $60,000 for your average electric car. We have, I try to let go, I'm sorry. So they said $60,000 for your average electric vehicle. However, there are electric vehicles, EVs, that are $30,000, which is, and for a brand new car, that is very affordable. Considering, I mean, we see it all the time. We see kids driving around these dualies that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let's not act like that's not a thing. My next point that I'd like to get into, they talked about freedom, and it's a free economy. However, our economy is not entirely free. As we can tell, there are limits and there are laws and regulations. We don't see people saying that we should not support the ban on selling drugs. We also have age limits, such as on alcohol and tobacco with 21. So our economy is not entirely free. We have laws and regulations that are for the best interest in our people. The next environmental argument I want to talk about, they talked about the production of CO2 and the production of electric vehicles and the extraction of the materials. However, these still exist with gas cars. For example, gas cars are still made out of the same materials that electric cars are made out of, so you still have to extract. The saving of CO2 emissions comes from after production. After production, gas cars continue to release millions of gallons of CO2 into the air. However, these EVs are not. That's where we're cutting down and preserving our environment. For instance, imagine you're pushing your baby down, your baby's in a stroller and you're pushing her down the street, and all of a sudden your baby starts coughing and she gets a respiratory disease due to CO2. We're not protecting our kids. Also, we've all seen the commercials for Dawn with the ducks. You know why that's called, where the ducks are covered in oil? Do you know why that's caused? That comes from oil spills, which are caused by drilling for oil in the oceans. So if we're going to really protect our environment, protect our animals, shouldn't we get rid of drilling for oil? I mean, it sounds smart. I'm just saying, me personally. The next thing I want to talk about is they talked about the federal tax, and they brought up our point. We brought up the federal tax because when you file your taxes, you don't file your taxes for the state of Texas. You file your taxes for the federal government. You don't file it for the state of Texas. You file it for the federal government because the federal government is the one collecting and monitoring all the taxes, hence why they provide the grant. So because it is a federal grant, Texas can't take it away. So even if the state of Texas moved to take away your grant, they couldn't because it's a federal grant. It's protected by the federal government. And then I just want to finish on this last point. I want you guys to imagine with me, all right? You're hunting. You got your big old truck, right? It makes tons of noise. But then you take this Prius, right? This electric car. It's all quiet. You modify it. You put a chair on the back of it, put some camo paint. Now you got a Predator Prius. You're driving around in a Predator Prius, killing hogs. Tell me that does not sound like the Texan thing to do. Thank you. Further going into this, they said, don't change what America is. At least to me, America is a country that has always represented the best of the best. Because we're the best. So we want the best technology. We want the best cars. We want EVs. And that's all.
We want to pick it back up. All right. Take your phones out. We're going to vote again. We're going to see who won. Now, try to dismiss your priors. Depart from how you thought about this issue before you got here. Vote on who you thought made the best argument. and we will see. See if we changed any minds. He broke it. We'll wait just a little bit. We'll have this. Got a few more. Everybody log on and vote. I'll take this out. House music. Just a few more seconds. Okay, let's see the results. So starting out, it was 16% for, 84% against. Now we are 68 against, 32% for, so the government wins. Congratulations, government. Give all the debaters a round of applause. Everybody did good. All right, thank you very much. Thank you all for attending tonight. We'll do the same thing again next semester. Haven't figured out what we're going to be debating yet, but we will have it soon. And thanks a lot. We'll see you in the spring. Good job, debaters.